Roger, you seem to have the inside skinny on Mr. Donald Trump. How serious is he with running for president?
Javier, I think he's as serious as a heart attack. New poll in New Hampshire yesterday, CNN poll, shows him only trailing Mitt Romney 27-21, ahead of Gingrich, ahead of Pawlenty, ahead of Haley Barbour, ahead of others. I think he's seriously looking at it. I think that he'd make a very strong general election candidate. His path to the nomination is not an easy one, but I think it's certainly possible.
What do you think of his angle as far as going after President Obama and the whole birth certificate issue?
Well, I think it's a legitimate issue, because what Trump is saying is, why didn't he just release his birth certificate? In other words, I'm not saying he was born in Kenya. I'm not saying he's a U.S. citizen. I'm not saying he's constitutionally ineligible. I'm asking a simple question. Why doesn't he clear the air? Why doesn't he just make the birth certificate available? I think that there is a substantial segment of Republican primary voters who agree with Trump, who agree with him that the president should make his birth certificate public. And therefore, I think that's given him a foothold in New Hampshire. It's interesting that his position has increased in both the national polls and in the Republican primary polls after he raised the entire question of where the president was born.
So you think Mr. Trump will announce in these next several months?
Well, he said he'll make the decision by June. I think he could wait a little longer than that, frankly. But as you know, you've got to look at the Republican primary schedule, and you've got to really try to assess where a candidate like Donald Trump, who in my opinion is a giant among pygmies, could do well. Iowa is problematic because it has a very large evangelical Christian vote, which is probably dominant within their primary. On the other hand, that vote is going to be divided up by several other candidates, numerous other candidates. So perhaps Trump could emerge from Iowa with a plurality. New Hampshire, he's obviously doing very well. He's running by a handful of votes, and he's not even a candidate yet. Romney has already said that he'll pass up Iowa, so whatever his standing is in New Hampshire today will probably be less after he loses the Iowa caucuses. And of course, the schedule then goes Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, South Carolina, I think Florida. I think Florida is next in line. I think Florida is an offset for South Carolina. Florida is Donald Trump's second home state. It's a state where he can do very well.
And he's going to be speaking in a couple weeks at the Tea Party up in Palm Beach,
which I think is very significant. I mean, Trump is coming to South Florida for a very good reason. It recognizes the importance of Florida within the Republican primary system, particularly the early Republican primary system. I mean, it's just interesting to me. South Carolina is a state that the Republican nominee, no matter who he or she is, will carry. Florida is a state that the Republican Party must carry in the next presidential election, and therefore I think their primary is far more important. This is Trump's second home. I think he has great potential in Florida. I think he could win the Florida primary. I've kind of joked around and said that, well, he could bring back the front porch campaign style of William McKinley. In other words, he could invite 1,000 Republican activists and party officials to Mar-a-Lago every Friday night for 2 months and meet everyone at his own estate right there in Palm Beach who matters inside the Florida Republican Party.
Now, why do you think Mr. Trump is qualified to be president if he's never held any kind of public office?
I actually think the American people are tired of career politicians. I think someone who comes from a different discipline, whether it's the military or academia or business, would be a stronger candidate for us. If the number one issue in the country is jobs, Trump knows how to create jobs. Trump has actually created hundreds of thousands of jobs, which is something no one else potentially in this race can say. So I frankly think running an outsider businessman, someone with a no-nonsense reputation like Trump, would be a big plus for the Republican Party.